Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there. I was just staring out the window and thinking, what a glorious day. And glorious day yesterday. And I'm thankful. I'm grateful. And of course, I immediately think of people that are not enjoying wonderful weather and people who are like just roasting in the drought-ridden West. I read somewhere today that the levels in lakes and reservoirs are down so far that in one case, the wreckage of a airplane crash from the 80s or something is now uncovered, visible somewhere in California, I think. Incredible. So, hello. I did start again about the weather, didn't I? I can't help it when it's this glorious. Yo. Just wow. Anyway, excuse me. We were overdue for that. It's June 24th, just to set things in the space and time continuum. And it's a Thursday. And it's 2021. A year with no paucity of news. So, what do we talk about? We move from story to story with such, I want to use the word alacrity. I've never said that out loud. And I don't even know if that's proper usage. I think it is. But we just bounce from story to story. And that is because we are driven by media and its desires to constantly entertain and distract us. And, oh, look over there. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, well, look over there. And you realize that you often don't get any, I'll use this term that annoys the hell out of me, closure about so many of the stories that might have held your attention, your rapt attention, for days. And then, bang-o, it just disappears into the recesses of your gray matter. And I think everything's just moving too fast. But I came upon an update on a story I hadn't thought about in months, and I just thought I'd pass it on to you because odds are you haven't either. And maybe you don't even give a damn. But for a while there was a big story because it was the story of that huge container ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal that had an impact on global shipping. Ships all over the place were turning around and deciding, well, I guess it'll be faster to go around Africa rather than right through this canal, and on and on and on and yada yada yada. And then it got somehow pushed out, that big container ship, and things went back to relative normal, and we stopped paying attention, right? Well, do you know all this time, and that was in March, all this time, the poor members of the crew of that huge container ship, I don't even know what the exactly like how big that container ship is. I'm trying to remember. Did they say it was like 3 football fields or whatever? On that huge ship, there is a crew of 25, which I guess makes some sense because mostly it's just cargo. So since we stopped paying attention, those 25 sailors, guys just trying to make a living, all of them from India, even though the ship is owned by a Japanese. Boy, is there anything more universal than the makeup of maritime anything? Ships licensed in countries that they have nothing to do with crews from an entirely different country, a captain from another, an owner someplace else. I'm sorry, I'm just blathering. But those poor 25 Indians have been stuck on that ship ever since. And that ship is stuck just to the side of the Suez Canal. It got towed over to a little natural body of water that somehow connects to the canal. And it for these poor Indian sailors, it's got a perfect name because they have been stuck on that ship in the Great Bitter Lake. Yeah. They have been unable to leave the ship. They're just stuck there. And while people that are deemed more important than they are negotiating to see just how much money it's going to take to let them go. And still hasn't happened. The Egyptians are saying we want, I think, over $1 billion for the damage that was done, blah, 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 blah. And of course, there's insurance companies involved. And again, people from all kinds of different countries. I believe the owner is Japanese, right? Anyway, just wanted to tell you, if you ever wondered, and odds are you didn't, while the owner and the insurance company and the Suez Canal authorities have been quibbling, well, it is a lot of money, have been quibbling for a long time, months and months and months. And these poor guys who had nothing, by the way, to do with what happened. I mean, they were not in charge. But it turns out that, I mean, who knows how this will end, because there have been other instances where a ship has done damage to the Suez Canal and has been impounded like this with its crew. And in some cases, they have been stuck for years. So there's that. And I know, again, so. Okay, so there was a picture in the New York Times today that freaked me out. Somewhere in the back of my head, I already knew that when pandas give birth, and they're like big animals. They're like huge, roly-poly, so cute we can't believe it animals, right? The giant panda. Well, the giant panda, when it finally does give birth, which happens rarely, apparently, the female essentially squirts out it's no bigger than it gets lost in the palm of your hand. So I'm looking at a picture, and I didn't know what I was looking at. It looked like this raw, sort of a red, maybe ceramic depiction of a dog. I mean, because you have a tail, there's a long tail, and there's 4 legs, and this weird head, and it's red, but it's being held in a gloved person's hand between its thumb and index finger. It's just being held, this little thing. And I thought, what the heck is that? It looks sort of wet and icky. And that's one of the pandas that got born in Japan the other day. There were twins. And this was the first one who came out, and it didn't even weigh 4 ounces. I've always thought of childbirth as, something extraordinary that only females, I think generally speaking, I guess there's a few outliers, can do. And that it hurts. I don't think it hurt much for a panda. I think the panda's lucked out here because passing one of these things would not. It just looks, first of all, it doesn't look anything like a panda. It's frightening looking. 4 ounces. What would a human newborn be if we were? I mean, we would weigh 1 ounce. I don't know, and we wouldn't look like a human. That is really weird. So anyway, there were 2 of them. How they ever even know a panda's pregnant? I mean, given that this wouldn't make I hate the term baby bulge. Oh, bump, baby bump. I hate that term. That's the one. God. The weight of the second one isn't even known yet, I guess. But the story in which this picture appeared, which creeped me out, has the greatest opening sentence. Oh, I'm going to share it with you now. As the giant panda shinnied into a handstand and urinated upside down against a tree, it was an auspicious sign. Apparently, that was the male showing his stuff to the female. Some months, I don't know how long the gestation period is, but that's how it all began. And with the male doing a handstand and urinating upside down. And I guess that is to spread his scent wider than it would normally go. And man, I must have been a hell of a handstand because it seems to have done the trick, resulting in these 2 frightening looking slippery pink, and they're going to become these cute things. Pandas. Okay. Is there a big story I'm supposed to be talking about? I hope not. Well, there is. I mean, that high rise somewhere near Miami, right in Miami, it just friggin' fell down. I mean, the whole. Can you imagine? I mean, it wasn't like it was an explosion. It just fell down. I know we got crumbling infrastructure. But I don't recall ever hearing of such a building just simply. I mean, a relatively new building, and it just like says, "Oh, I just can't anymore," and it just drops. Lord, they know that there's one dead. I mean, it's amazing that there's not more. I haven't seen again. I pretty much stopped watching television except for, streaming Netflixy stuff. I pretty much have stopped. So I don't watch news anymore, and I don't know what's on there. And I'm sure that's a big story today, right? Because that would be some really good visuals. A lot of potential attraction of rubberneckers to that. All right. Free Britney. Free Britney. The funniest thing I saw on Twitter today was somebody had a sign. I think they had just scribbled it on something. I don't know really what it, but it said, Free Britney and Palestine. Oh gosh. I don't get it. It was a little bit I've paid attention to in regard. I haven't watched apparently it's a documentary, all this stuff about this poor pop star, whatever, who's essentially the courts have given her father conservatorship, which means she can't do a damn thing without her father's permission, and he sounds like a real SOB. It's sort of like excuse me, it's like the NCAA athletes making tons and tons and tons of money by their talent and not getting any of it. So in this case, her father's got all the money. She makes millions and millions and millions, and she has no access to it or even the ability to make decisions about her own life, where she can go, what she can do. And it's pretty outrageous. Free Britney! I don't know. So, what else? It's going to be one of those days. I'm sorry. There was nothing to me compelling in much of what I read, because it's also in flux. And I speak, of course, of much of what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I have and this is by virtue of just having paid attention for so long, I have outgrown or outlived my capacity to be fascinated in any way, interested, or allowing myself to get emotionally involved in the day-to-day of what goes on in this country. I can't do it. And I suspect I'm not alone. I think we're all pretty exhausted. Pretty damn exhausted. So yesterday, and I think I told you, I'm starting every sentence with so. Excuse me. Ah, dang. Yesterday, I think I told you, I was going off to buy a cemetery plot. And I did. I did. If you ever, there are people who are shoppers, and then there are people who aren't. I'm in the latter category. I can think of people who love to shop as people I would really not want to go shopping with, because they're people who just get distracted. Oh, but look at that. Oh, well, try that on. No, try that on. Well, let's see. No, look at that. Oh, I want to say, oh, I don't really need them. Oh, look at that. That's, you know what I mean? I would rather, I don't know, get a colonoscopy than shop with a shopper. The people who mull, the people who can't make up their minds, the people who, wow, geez, I don't know. And it's just so exhausting. So I tend to shop in a very sort of, I don't know. Sometimes it yields regrets, is true, but I'm pretty quick. And, I thought, oh boy, you're going to be picking out your final resting place. That might be something that even you want to think about a little bit, not just say, okay, that's fine, bye. And for the first time, I did find myself trying to be more picky and asking questions. And I was very proud of myself. But I still made a decision within, I'd say, 20 minutes, which I think for a lot of people would be considered fast. And I told you that I'm going to be planted in this, green cemetery, this Penn Forest Natural Burial Park. And I believe it was one of you who first alerted me to it in an email before the pandemic, because I had gone researching it, looking it up, and had decided I have to make an appointment. And then the pandemic came and I forgot. So I went out to this place, only like 20 minutes from my house. I mean, driving like my brother. Otherwise, it's maybe 30, 25. I don't know. And it does not in any way seem like a cemetery. It just seems like a woods. It just seems like you're in nature. Woods and meadows. There's one area that's like all wildflowers, old trees, ferns, you know, it's just whatever's growing. It's just there. They're not planting stuff. It's just the reality of it. And so and no headstones. Some of the graves are marked, but in order to have a marking, it has to be on a pretty small stone slab that has to be flush with the ground, can't stick up above it. So laid down like a natural stone might be. And the stone has to be a native stone to Pennsylvania. It all has to be, there can't be anything there that wouldn't naturally be there. And it's very quiet there. And it was a beautiful day. And, you know, I heard a train whistle. And I thought, oh, good. I love the sound of a distant train whistle, because in my childhood, I used to love hearing that when I was trying to sleep. And I can hear them here when I'm trying to sleep. And it occurred to me, is there anyone who lives anywhere that can, well, I suppose rural, but if you live in a city, you can always hear train whistles, right? So it's like not something special that happened to me. But, and here's the cool thing. I get to have my dog with me. I said, could I like have my dog get, you know, buried here with me too? And they said, sure, no problem. Guess they throw in the dog for no extra cost. Oh, wow. There are two birds taking a bath in the little pond I have out there. Oh my God, they're so happy. What do I know? They're so much cleaner. So I am really looking forward to being dead in that place. That just strikes me as a nice place to spend the rest of your life. They even have a big garden with flowers where you can, you go in and you can take some home, you know, just pick them. And I did. And the other thing is there's a lot of animals around there. So there's a hiking trail, and then there's a preserve, and there are sheep and goats and chickens and ducks. Trying to think and there's, I think her name was Jiggly or something like that, or Jingles. And she was a white donkey. And she walked around with me for a while. And I totally, it was just amazing. I was covered in long white donkey fur when I came home. I mean, each really long. I was surprised at how long the hair was. So it was like 4 or 5 inches long, big white, coarse white things from her. Yeah, it's an unusual place. And I want to thank, I forget who did it, thank whoever told me about it. So thank you. There's only about 200 people buried out there right now. But the woman says in the last year or two, people have been getting a lot more interest as people begin to see the sort of beauty of being in a lovely place like that in a natural setting. So I always get the impression that people don't like talking about this stuff. Why is that? Because we don't want to think of our mortality. So driving back, there was that so again. Driving back from the place, going back home, I was on Ohio. Is that no Ohio River Boulevard? No, Allegheny River Boulevard. Allegheny River Boulevard. Of course, it was on the Allegheny. You idiot! Ohio River is. It was the Allegheny River Boulevard. And as I went away from it, I thought, so my last corporeal trip, I looked at the cars coming the other way. I thought my last corporeal trip will be heading on this road to that place. That's sort of neat. I don't know. I'm weird. I'll stop. I really will. I will stop right now. Right now. Bree, writing from Malaysia, says, no train whistle here. Really? Well, maybe they don't even whistle. Maybe you hear trains, but maybe not whistles, because, in Asia, they probably have much better trains than we do. Everybody has much better trains than we do. So maybe they don't even bother whistling anymore. I don't know. No train whistle here, he says, but I do hear the call to prayer several times a day. Oh, yeah. Well, you live in a Muslim country, you're going to hear the call to prayer. What is it, 5 times? And Bree says the 5 or 6 a.m. one can be problematic. I guess so. But I suppose if it's such a constant that you would eventually sort of almost not hear it, or it wouldn't disturb your sleep. It would just be part of the natural soundscape. I've heard the call to prayer when I was in Israel, and I love it. I love it. I don't know if I'd love it 5, 6 times a day, every day, but I'd love it. There's something so enduring about it, to know that this call, I always get chills when I think of it. Often when I say a Hebrew prayer, I'll say a prayer and think, geez, this prayer, exactly like this, has been being said for over 2,000 years. This is a prayer that Jesus would have said. And to know on certain holidays when we're saying these prayers that all over the world, Jews who might speak a million other languages are all saying these prayers. That always blows my mind. And in this case too, the Muslim call to prayer. The sound of it is just wondrous, really. And then Bree says, in terms of birds, I read that there may be something. Oh, no. I heard that there may be something going around there in the eastern U.S. What? Bird baths may be spreading something? Hey, look it up. Experts aren't sure. Well, this is not a bird bath. This is a moving water source. I have a little pond that has a little waterfall, and it's on the top of the waterfall. There's a little space, which is where they go. The water is running, and I don't know. Oh, I hate water just pools and there's no, because that's how mosquitoes get around. Okay. In my mail, I almost said so in my mail, but I actually got rid of it. In my mail yesterday came something that comes every year, and it's, well, let's just say this. The return address is a logo, a G, and under that it says 13-time world champions. It's from the Packers, my hometown. And it is my notice that the shareholders meeting is coming up July 26th. And so they send me tickets every year. You have to have a ticket to go in. And I get 4 tickets. Anyone want to go to the shareholders meeting of the Packers? It's quite an experience. It's held in the stadium in Lambeau Field, rain or shine. And all the town folk who ponied up some money at some point in the family life to help this struggling, team, they show up because they're shareholders. We have a vote. And there's a great deal of excitement because last year's shareholders meeting was held virtually for the first time because of COVID. And whatever, all they want, this is in regard to anyone who owns shares in the Packers, having any real ability to influence anything is, of course, absurd. I've never gone to one of these things. I think it would be, well, it might be interesting to go once, but I'm never around when they have it. It was in 1923 that the team first sold shares. And I think I inherited mine from an uncle. Not sure. I've lost the actual certificate, but they got my name. And it's mostly about, voting on the board of directors. And the board of directors is a bunch of local yokels, always has been, which is also unusual for a sports team, right? There's no owner. There's just, I'm looking up the names of some of these people. There's no owner, but here's somebody I actually know. Christine Walesky. I know her. She comes to my mom's house for dinner. She's on the board. And then it's just people who are in business. And there's the people from the Oneida Nation. And there's a guy named Kohler who's with the Kohler, the plumbing company, which is right up the road from Green Bay in a place strangely called Kohler, Wisconsin. Anyway, if anyone wants to go to the shareholder, I'm sure I can't give these to somebody who's not a real shareholder. But there you go. It's a wonderful little strange thing. Ellen writes, I've been increasingly thinking of trying to find somewhere that will compost bodies when people have died. My original thoughts were to be cremated, but the thought of something more environmentally friendly, yes, appeals to me. The place you are describing sounds lovely. Are people buried in some kind of casket? Well, it depends on what you mean by composting. I think there are no lead liner things. No, anybody buried there is buried in something that will biodegrade. So you don't want some fancy coffin. You could have a cardboard box, or as I asked, I said, you don't have to have any of that, do you? Just put you in. I would take from Jewish burial ritual, which I find very compelling. I would, have a white linen shroud, simple, total white linen shroud, wrap me up and put me in. There's no reason to have a container. The container is the earth. And so that's how most people are buried there. They get put in, and then they mound, dirt over you. I saw a few of the fresher graves, and you can tell which they are because there's like big mounds of dirt over them. And they wait until those settle, as they say. And that's like 6 to 8 months usually. And when they're pretty sure things are settled, they level off that mound so that, it can go back to being exactly like it was. And, at that point, you can plant stuff on top. You can put a marker if need be. And I mean, that's composting, isn't it? You just go right back to nature. It's leaving it to a natural process. I've never quite understood why, otherwise, if to get buried in some, casket that then has a lining, so there's no way that you can decompose in a natural way. It just makes no sense. Why put you in the ground then? It's just craziness. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. And you can also, put cremains there. There's a number of areas for cremains. It just makes sense. I got a stipulation that after a year, somebody at my direction can plant a tree on top of me. So whatever's left of me can be in the tree. I love the idea. I really do. Listen. Barbara says, I was told there's a choice of wood, wicker, or some type of material shroud. All must be biodegradable. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can't be in a plastic bag, okay? You could be in a paper bag. And recycle one of those damn Amazon cartons you got. I don't know. Seems like a good idea. Hey, I should have told them I was going to do a commercial for them and maybe gotten a better deal. If any of you guys go out there and decide to give them some money because you're buying a plot, tell them I sent you. So maybe they'll, hell, I already paid. So there it is. And I just love the fact that those animals are all over the place. God, they're funny. It was lovely. Really lovely. Okay, that's that. I have to tell you, we've changed a lot, haven't we? Because of what we've been through this last year. And we've lost a lot. And some of that loss has been tragic and unbearable. And many people are grieving great loss. But then there are other things we lost that we can celebrate. And I was thinking, a lot of us lost this sort of crazy sense that we had to always be doing something. That if we were not being productive, if we were not, out there doing this, that, giving, getting, and, buying, spending, getting, taking, blah, 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 that we were not living. And I don't know, I found out, no, it could be a lot quieter and slower and contemplative. It could. And I'm hoping that people hang on to that and don't return to the hustle and bustle of insanity. Yeah. Yeah. That so many of us lived in, and many, I suppose, still do. But one of the things I lost, I'm not quite sure what to call it. Initially, I thought it was my vanity. And to a large extent, I guess that's sort of what it is, but not really. I never, up until the pandemic, I would never go out in public before I painted my face. And I mean painted it. First, I'd put concealer under my eyes because I have naturally very dark shading under my eyes, raccoon eyes. First, I'd do that. Then, to blend that into the rest of my mottled old skin, I would put a foundation on. So I'm smearing, I'm painting my entire face. Then, after I've done that, you apply powder to keep that affixed. Then I would turn my attention to my eyes, which I always found wanting. And I would draw a line with eyeliner atop my lashes. And I put that line atop my eye for 55 years. Every day. I got so good at it, I could just like zip and zip. And the thought of going out without that line was it wouldn't even have entered. It wouldn't even have. No way. And then as I got older and my eyebrows started thinning out, I had to fill in the eyebrows on top of it. Because I had naturally black lashes, I never got into mascara. So I ditched the mascara, didn't have to do that. But then I had to do lipstick. I still haven't gotten to my hair. Oh, man, depending on what part of my life that was, in the big hair days of the 80s. Good God almighty. That was a long time of dealing with. If I could get all the time back that I have spent in my life putting on this liquid mask so that I would be acceptable, putting on this paint so that I would be found attractive. My God, I probably have months and months and months and months. And now, I don't do a goddamn thing. Not a thing. I'm just like a guy. Only I don't have to shave. It's better than a guy. I get up. I wash my face. I mean, I put cold water on my face. There's nothing to wash off. I don't have there's nothing there. It's just natural. I brush my teeth. I comb my now very long hair, twist it up into a thing, stick something in it so it stays in one place, takes 2 seconds, and I'm out the door. And when I first started to do this, I was self-conscious. I was thinking, I wonder if people think like they must just think I'm ugly as hell. And then I stopped thinking about it, so that when I meet people now, they meet me as I am. Not hiding anything. Here I am. And I suppose this is something that women who aren't actively looking for partners can do. Because the whole idea was you had to have a certain look to be considered attractive in our culture. every once in a while I'd have a boyfriend who'd say, "You don't need all that stuff. Stop putting all that stuff. I like you better without it." And I would look at them like they were insane. So it's not vanity I lost. I lost this self-loathing that I was taught, that what I was naturally was somehow needed to be covered up, needed to be painted over, needed constant enhancement. And that's all learned. And it can be unlearned. And if this pandemic and the enforced isolation it created has done me any good in that regard, I'm so grateful. I really am. And maybe if I were younger, I don't know, maybe I would be less inclined. Maybe I would still be in the clutches of the culture more. But when you get old enough, who the hell cares? First of all, being an old woman, which I am, one has gotten used to already sort of not being looked at like you used to be looked at. Any woman of a certain age will tell you that when you walk down a street, you get looked at up, down, sometimes really creepily, sometimes with, disgusting things being said. And then you get old, and at first the absence of that was sort of upsetting. To me, none of these disgusting men on the sidewalk are lusting after me anymore. It was, whoa, you age out very quickly in this culture, especially if you're not wearing makeup. Anyway, yeah, discounted. So who cares what I look like, right? Yeah, Ellen says, I was implying that I would be adamant about not being in any kind of box. Right. You don't have to be in a box. Who wants to be in a box? Chuck writes, a couple of years ago, we buried one of my best friends in Penn Forest. I'll be with him. Pete spent his life as an environmental engineer, and he traveled the world helping to solve environmental issues, often in third world countries. Pete died of cancer at the age of 57. And to the very end, he was truly an environmentalist. He wanted to be buried at Penn Forest. He said that modern day cemeteries are full of environmental waste. The coffins alone are full of contaminants, and the bodies are full of toxic fluids. He was against that, so we buried him. He arrived at the cemetery in cardboard, and after his friends took turns speaking, we dropped his body in a hole. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Every year his friends return, guitars in hand, and we sing the songs that Pete liked best. Oh, that's just lovely. That's just lovely. When you first get there, they took me on a tour, when you first get there, the first place where they tell you that this is an area where there are bodies buried, because you can't tell. But there was a sign that said something like Jewish. It was like the ghetto. It was like Jews buried here. And I thought, what? You do have a Jewish part? And the reason it's a Jewish part is, I guess, again, with Jewish burial, you want to be laid in so-called consecrated ground, and that can only happen with the blessing of a rabbi. And so I said, how did this? She says, well, some rabbis came out and they blessed this land, soil here, so Jews are buried in it now. Now, I am not, I said, yeah, but it's not, I said, I'm a Jew. I said, but I don't want to be buried here. It's too close to the parking lot. You can see a house over there. I don't feel like I'm in the woods here. I said, the Jews couldn't have negotiated some better real estate here? I can't believe this. So I said, I'm not going to be buried with the Jews. I'm sorry. Let's keep going. I need to get into some place that seems like a forest. So the upshot is that when we finally found a place where we could put me, there was only one little space left here. And I said, so, the woman had to say, so there is someone here. And she actually gave me the name. And it was a Jew. I said, well, those are another Jews, not in the Jewish part. I said, so I got a Jewish neighbor. It's great. We're not in the Jewish only section. That's fine. I don't want to be in the ghetto. I don't need consecrated ground, Scooby-Dooby-Ooby, and now it's consecrated. So, yeah, I got a Jewish neighbor, and all is well. There's a lovely sort of wall that has been built, a stone wall with some, and I asked what that was, and it turns out it's the work of a former, I think he's not there anymore, Post-Gazette writer who had been sent out to do a story on this place years ago. And he was so taken that he worked out something with him, and he's like building things there. And he bartered essentially so that he could be buried there. And it's like a little wailing wall, little tiny thing, because there's paper and you can write stuff. It's biodegradable paper. You can write on it, stick it in I don't know why you would, but people like to do stuff. So there's all that. But Chuck, thank you for that story about your friend Pete, and I'll be glad to be in his company. Oh, what we got. So I broke up with my personal trainer yesterday. It was very difficult, but it was COVID. She's not vaccinated, and I can tell she ain't going to be. And I just have such difficulty with that. And she won't budge, and I wasn't going to budge, and so that was the end of that. And you just, I wonder, I saw that there's this hospital in Houston, and 153 of their employees resigned or were fired when the hospital said, you have to get vaccinated to work here. Can you imagine 153 people saying, I'd rather lose my job than get a vaccine when they work in healthcare? Amazing. Houston Methodist is one of the first hospital systems to require the vaccine. And I just, I don't know. I don't know. So that's something I lost, my personal trainer, because of this. It's just, there are some things that, I'm sorry, you can't compromise on. I don't think. Barbara says, this is getting, I bet we're losing audience here. I was told by a local mortician that groundwater leaks into the coffins in a local cemetery, even though the coffin is contained in a vault. That would be enough for me not to want to be in a coffin. Well, what do you mean? You could go swimming. Had I ever considered that to be my first choice? I don't know how she knows about the water in the coffins, but that's what she told me. Yeah, I don't either. I don't either. I don't know. I don't know. I think most people these days get cremated, don't they? And I just can't go there. I'm sorry. Too many Jews went up up the chimney in the Holocaust. This Jew ain't getting burned. Anyway, I believe it's against our faith. So, we often think of, I don't know if this is true. I mean, why should I put thoughts into your head? We often think. I often think, with all these horrific stories we're privy to now of police behaving badly or murderously, outrageously, that we forget it was ever thus. And in a lot of instances, their bad behavior, their murderous behavior, was greeted by the vast majority of Americans as, yeah, there you go. That's the cops doing what they're supposed to be doing. And of course, that means it was white America reacting to what police were doing to black people. And this came to mind because of an obituary I read. And it was the obituary of a woman named Consuela Africa. She was 67 years old. She was one of the original members of the group called MOVE in Philadelphia. It was founded by a guy named John Africa. He changed his name to get that. And the group was all about exactly what we've been talking about, was about back to nature philosophy, and also back to Black autonomy and liberation. And most of the people that were in the group took his name. So I think there's a little bit of a cultish, maybe, aspect to it. Man, the cops didn't like these people. And there was an attempt, I think it was 1985, there was an attempt to arrest 4 members of the group. It didn't go well. And what happened is so astonishing. The Philadelphia police, trying to arrest 4 people, fired 10,000 rounds into the row houses where the members lived. And that wasn't enough. They actually bombed their own city. They had a helicopter go up with bombs, and they dropped bombs on those row houses. The cops, just doing their duty, destroyed 65 homes in Philadelphia. That's what they did. Destroyed 65 homes, killed 11 people, including 5 children. And they were charged with nothing. Nothing. 1988, a grand jury exonerated all police officials of any criminal liability. Can you imagine? I recall the news coverage, and it was covered like these people were dangerous and insane and, lunatics. Consuela Africa, whose obit this is, was the mother of two of the children that were killed. Her daughters, Zanetta, who was 12, and Patricia, who was 14. Incredible. And she later found out that the University of Pennsylvania had used the bones of her daughter, Patricia, for some kind of forensic research. So it was ever thus. The difference is that now a lot of us white folks are aware and are just are so many things, not the least of which is just such shame. I could peel off my skin. I feel like it puts me on the wrong side, but it is my skin. Okay, you guys, that's it. I see it's 11 o'clock. It's even a little bit after, and I've been babbling the whole time. Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm going out and get into this beautiful day. Incredible. You have a good one. See you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.